Welcome to the One Room at a Time podcast. I'm your host, Atticus LeBlanc, founder and CEO of PadSplit, the largest co-living marketplace in the country. I've worked in affordable housing for over 20 years as a property owner, developer, and now an entrepreneur. The One Room at a Time podcast features housing leaders who are addressing both challenges and opportunities around America's growing housing crisis. We'll focus on practical solutions that can truly make a difference. Today, I'm excited to be welcoming someone who has dedicated himself to years of service. Leon Orange is a Milwaukee native, a 20-year Army veteran, a creative entrepreneur, and the founder of Orange's Media and OIM Creative Studio, where he blends military discipline with artistic vision to tell stories. Leon is also a successful real estate entrepreneur and house hacker with PadSplit. He has lived in one room while renting out the others to eliminate his own housing costs and accelerate his growth. His journey is a playbook for aspiring investors who want to start with limited funds and scale with purpose. Leon, welcome to the show. Where are we catching you today?
Thanks for having me right here in Orlando, Florida, right inside my studio, OIM Creative Studio.
Amazing. And Leon, yeah, I mean, we've obviously talked a couple times before. We loved having you on a member town hall. I saw you recently in Orlando. And did a little bit of a brief intro, but would love if you could just kind of walk the audience through your story and tell us a little bit more about your background.
Absolutely. So I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I knew that while my friends were going off to colleges to be computer science engineers and different things like that, I knew I wanted to do something more in like the creative realm, whether it was music, whether it's photography, shooting videos, being the next Steven Spielberg or something like that. But my only thing that was stopping me was being able to pay for college. So I looked at the opportunity to be able to join the military, and it really changed my life, really just shaped my life, moving forward. That was back in 2005. This is 2025. So this year is my 20 years in the military. After I got out of active duty, after serving in Afghanistan and Kuwait, I came to Orlando, Florida in 2008. And, it's funny because my dad around that time was like, you're a veteran now, which means you can use the VA loan, make sure you buy a house. And keep in mind, I said this was 2008. And I was like, I don't know anything about getting a house, man. I'm just living on my own. I want to get my first apartment. And I was able to pretty much accomplish the goals that I wanted to do photography, do video, do music, all the things until about 2020. Where life really hit. I was working at a real estate agency doing photography, and I ended up getting let go from my job. It was the first time that I've ever gotten let go from my job. And I think about 2021, I got a notice from my apartment complex that they were going to go up on my rent a whole $226. I had gotten incremental increases before, maybe $50 here, $75 here, but $226, I was like, you guys are out of your mind. But it was always kind of embedded in me that at some point I want to be able to own something. I want to be able to have a piece of ownership, a piece of land, so that way if things were to ever get rocky or rough, I won't be in a messed up situation, a desperate situation. So I looked into getting a quadplex. Things didn't work out with my VA loan. Looked into getting a duplex. Things didn't work out.
So real quick there, Leon. So you said you looked into a quadplex, so 4 units, small apartment complex, and
Yes.
VA loan just wouldn't fund it, or what happened there?
What the specifics were told to me is I would have to have at least 3 to 6 months in reserves to show that I can afford and pay for that, fourplex. And, with a fourplex, a quadplex, it's not just, the standard of a single family home. It's not $300,000. Sure. It may be three times that amount. So, that just didn't work out. The same thing with the duplex. And as prices in 2021 of rent increases started to happen, it seemed very clear that if I were to do a duplex, my harebrained idea was the other side was just going to pay for the entire thing. And it wasn't. So I got introduced to PadSplit. A friend of mine kind of talked to me about it. I did a little research. It was a little confusing at first in regards to how things work. It's like, okay, I have to furnish each room, but then I have the opportunity to build a room. I could turn a 3-bedroom into a 7-bedroom. And I didn't really have too many people that I could actually talk to about this. So it was a huge leap of faith. I had to do a lot of research. And I did talk to a few people that were investors already. And this is why I hope my story could kind of help others as well. That, you know, it did take me saving money up to furnish the homes. It did take me money to build a room out of a living room, but ultimately took me to have faith that this investment will work. And 2 years later, here I am with two single family properties, both at 5 bedrooms. So I have 10 doors essentially. And I've been able to stay in those properties to satisfy my VA loan guidelines, which states that you have to stay in a home for at least a year. I did that with both my properties. And now I've been able to open up my own photography studio and really pursue my dream to the fullest.
So incredible story. I want to kind of pull up and pull back for a second though, Leon, just for our listeners, so that everyone can understand. So you were in the Army, which meant that
Yes.
you could qualify for a VA loan. Uh,
Yes.
uh, Real quick, like walk me through how powerful that tool was for you and why, uh, and how it helped you get in the position to be able to buy this house, and just like the access that it created for you as a veteran.
Absolutely. So, as a veteran, I was able to be able to put a 0% down payment on buying my home. Now, if I had a standard home, a FHA loan, I would have to put probably minimum 3.5%. Your credit has to be a certain, depending on the bank, your credit has to be at a certain
Sure.
point. With the military veteran, I didn't have such strict guidelines in regards to my credit. So being able to have zero down payment and not uh like have to have my credit be basically really all that great. It really helped me be able to get in the door, and I probably wouldn't be able to if it wasn't. My houses were about 350,000, so 3.5% of that would make it that I'll have to put down the down payment of maybe about $12,000. So it just wasn't feasible at the time, and I'm just glad to be able to be a military veteran and be able to
Yeah.
qualify for that
So
loan.
so walking into that first house, Leon, like how much did you need in order to uh, buy the home, do any closing costs, make the improvements or repairs, or just furnish the home in the way that you knew you needed to?
Absolutely. One thing that was important for me, I was working a full-time job at the time, was keeping my full-time job to be able to fund anything that needed to happen. So the standard way in which you buy a home in regards to having to put down money for an escrow, paying for inspections, paying for appraisals, those different things, I still had to do. I still had to come out of pocket. Thankfully, my full-time job supported me being able to do those things. And once it came to me actually securing the house, I'd already been kind of scoping out in terms of how many bedrooms I can add. I was able to reach out to a couple contractors, get a couple quotes to see, hey, this living room is pretty big. Is there any way possible to turn this into a room? It was a 4-bedroom that I was able to stretch out into a 5th bedroom. And that was maybe about $3,000 to be able to do. And that really helped as far as things go. But just with any single family home, I had to pay everything that you would normally have to pay. Uh, but I just had to also furnish each room, which PadSplit has a great resource on their website to be able to give you the bare minimum or idea of what you need to be able to fill each room and what guidelines that they recommend.
So for other veterans who might be listening who realize, oh wait, I can qualify for a VA loan, maybe they live in Orlando. What would you say is a target for people uh, in terms of like how much savings do they actually need to go pursue this strategy to actually buy a home with a VA loan and turn it into essentially a cash flow machine that can cover their lifestyle, their mortgage payment, and hopefully start building wealth for them.
Absolutely. So with buying any home, there's different things you have to pay. You have to pay the escrow. So let's say you have a $300,000 home, you have to pay the escrow. That's going to be about $3,000. That gets put back into your home in regards to reserve. So you'll eventually get that back. So about $3,000 for the escrow. When it comes to any inspections or anything that may come up, let's say about $500. Um, you definitely want to pick a good house that has a good roof, something that is no more than 10 years old. Something that happened with me with my first house. I got the house, passed the inspection, roof inspection and all. And within 2 months, I was getting a letter stating I was going to lose my insurance unless I got a roof replacement. And I was able to qualify for a loan to be able to do that for an extra $10,000. But that's not necessarily everybody's case. It was my first home, so I definitely would recommend do your due diligence with any home that you buy to make sure that you can mitigate any costs moving forward. So $3,000 for escrow, about $500 for inspections and anything that may come up. Um, my realtor was really good as far as closing costs, trying to get the closing costs kind of covered on the back end or have the seller cover the closing costs. So I was able to get that kind of roped into the loan. So I didn't have to pay anything there, but that's something that's very realistic in terms of what you may have to do. With each room that I was able to furnish, it cost me about $700 to furnish each room. This is bed, dresser, mirror, and just maybe different fixings like fire extinguishers, different things that may like kind of pretty up the room. Let's say paintings. Probably would cost me about $700. I used IKEA to do it. There's always different local, really great local furniture stores that you can use to kind of mitigate those costs. So 7 times 5 is about 3,500. Plus 3,000 plus 500 is about $7,000. So I think probably you can definitely get up and running in just under $10,000 to be able to get
That's
up and going. It's not something you have to
yeah.
do all in the beginning, but just along the way.
And the house that you bought was $350,000. Is that right?
There's a fifty
So
dollars.
so
Yes.
like let's pause for a second there and just think about this because I know there are a lot of people who assume, look, the American dream is dead. I can't afford anything. Prices are too high. It's crazy. You bought this first house, what, three years ago? Is that right?
2
2
years
years
ago.
ago. Okay, so you bought this house 2 years ago. And how old were you at the time, Leon?
I guess I was 38,
Okay.
37 years
So
old. Yeah.
so I mean, you were at a stage where I think a lot of people have just given up hope that they're ever going to own something, or just assume that the cards are stacked against them. And
Yeah.
you spend less than $10,000, you buy this first house, and you start renting out rooms. Now, uh, let's cut to the punchline quickly. So, how long did it take you through PadSplit to fill those rooms? And what did that do for your expense overall? Like, what were you actually spending on living, or were you making money?
Absolutely. So with the 5-bedroom home, and I did the numbers plenty of times, I told myself going in, I want to rent it at least $1,000 per room. You have to kind of be realistic in regards to where you are. I was 5 minutes from downtown. So it was very feasible to be able to get $1,000 per home, per room. So what I was able to do is actually get roughly between 900 to $1,000 per room. Keep in mind, I was staying in one of the rooms, so I was actually renting 4 of the rooms. So let's say we have $900 times 4. That's roughly about $3,600. My mortgage was about, let's say, 2,400. So that kind of left me. And you kind of take out the different fees in regards to PadSplit. That left me to about $500 to $800 that was passive income. I say roughly about $600 that was passive income, and I was living somewhere for free. So I always account for me living somewhere for free because here in Orlando, you probably can't find a one bedroom for less than $2,000. So I always say I saved about $2,000 while making
Yeah, and
$600.
hopefully you're building equity as well. So like this house, presumably, if you chose a house in a decent area and it's a solid home, you should be appreciating to some degree over time while you're living for free, while you're putting $600 a month in your pocket.
Yes, absolutely. And that was great. And that $600 I used for, repairs, just sprucing everything up, making sure everything's comfortable. So it was a very good thing. And keep in mind, I kept my job the entire time as well. So that was money that I can allow my paycheck to go further because most of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Now I can use my entire paycheck and actually allow it to help me.
Amazing. Uh, but big caveat here. You
Mm.
had to live with four other people. So I'm sure there are a lot of people listening who are terrified by that idea. Walk us through like one, what was your goal in doing this to begin with? Truly, aside from the apartment raised your rent $226, you wanted to figure out just something that where you could control your own destiny. But like, what was the ultimate goal that led you to think, all right, I can share my home with four strangers, and this is going to work out? Why?
Absolutely. So for me, life is all about pros and cons. You just decide which pros and cons you want to live with. I could have just as well gotten my luxury apartment downtown, paid things, and not had a house, never had an opportunity to build equity, or I could go the pad split route, get one, two, maybe three pad splits, and allow that to then pay for the place that I ultimately really want to stay, and allow that to be able to be like, hey, now I can kind of open up my own business and still be able to flourish the way I want to. So it's passive income, enough income that will cover my living living expenses. That was my goal, is to have that. I'm a photographer, videographer. I can always make money on my own, and I just wanted to at least make sure my number one expense, which was your living expense, where you stay, was at least covered. And I've been able to do that. Now it was very challenging trying to live with four other people, but you heard noises, you heard people didn't always take out the trash. I've had even really heated conversations with people, and some people I had to really, had to tell them, hey, it's best that you move on. Some people I try to help, some people, things just didn't work out. So I had to deal with the idea of which pro and con do I want to live with. I can look at the positive and say, hey, I make $2,000 and I get to pocket that. Is that a pro enough to be able to stand living with other people and sharing common areas and different things like that? So I weighed out the pros and cons, and the pros were greater than the cons would be. It did take a lot of kind of killing your ego. And not everybody's situation is going to be the same. I'm single, I have no kids, so it may be different if you're a woman, and you have to have certain conversations with people, and there's a certain a nature that people respond to you if that's the case. Or if you have a wife or a girlfriend or a family, you want to do these different things. You have to really just kind of aggregate things in a way to make it best for your situation.
So let's talk through some of those struggles. Like, I'm curious to know, what do you wish you would have known ahead of time if you were going to go back and do it again, in terms of just operational lessons or roommate issues, some of the more heated conversations, like anything you think you would change if you would have gone back again to those early days.
Absolutely. I think one thing I would have done is really inspect the house. The house was very much, I'm really kind of dealing with it with my second house, where a lot of problems are kind of coming up later than they did before. I wish I would have had certain systems in place in regards to a welcome message, um, so that way they know moving in, because apparently not everyone reads the website. Not everyone knows what the guidelines are, and they don't know what PadSplit guidelines. So maybe a interview process prior to moving in, so that way we can understand whether or not we're a right fit for each other. I've seen that a lot of circumstances that were unfortunate that I had to be in could have been avoided if I had been a little bit more thorough in making sure who I was inviting into the home was going to be a right fit.
So give us some specifics there. I mean, you don't need to get too juicy on the details, but yeah, I mean, I've heard shared housing described as a full contact sport. So like, I mean, for people to know what they're getting into and what it takes to effectively, you're living for free, you're making money, you're earning equity, you're building wealth.
Mhm.
And I guess it worked out well enough because now you've done it a second time, which we'll get to. But yeah, any stories come to mind, both good or bad, in terms of what it's meant. I remember talking to you previously about picking up trash when no one else would. So like, give us some of the color there.
Absolutely. So yeah, just probably I could have put together a nice little welcome message, letting it be known, hey, um, it's everyone's job to keep the house in order. Because I was living in a home and I was a little bit more protective of the space, I was finding myself doing a lot of the cleaning, a lot of the, taking out the trash and different things like that. A lot of times, let's say after 8 o'clock, people will have guests. And it's like, hey, that's not that's not, allowed here to have guests after a certain time. And sometimes I wish I would have actually, communicate with them prior to. It's just that, sometimes it's like you have a few people that break the rules while the majority don't. So you just think that everyone knows. So just never leaving things up to an assumption. That would be great. We had a person that their schedule was at night while everyone else's was in the
Mm,
day. It would be nice to have ask, what type of schedule do you have? So that way there could be conflicts avoided, because while they made noise at night, let's say just common, just going into the refrigerator, cooking, um, everyone was asleep,
sure.
and vice versa. Everyone was up while that person was asleep. So different things like that that kind of cause conflicts that, unfortunately, sometimes you won't know until you actually face
Yeah.
it.
Um, yeah, I talk a lot with hosts about just managing expectations, and with our sales team talking to hosts as well. It's like everyone needs to understand that, look, this can work out extremely well for a lot of folks, but it is not without trade-offs. And so I love that you brought that up. Well, this is probably a good stopping point. I want to get to your next house, and we'll pick it up on the next call. So I appreciate so far. It's been a really inspiring start to the conversation, and I want to get to the rest of Leon's story, but let's pause things here. We'll pick back up in part two, where we'll talk more about just what you've learned as a PadSplit host, what's next in your journey, and particularly now that you've gone on and done this again, I want to hear about how that decision came to be. For our listeners, you can find Leon on LinkedIn. Check out orangesmedia.com. We'll link these in the show notes as well. And we will see you again, hopefully, for part two of this episode of One Room at a Time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.